happy that people from the legacy are getting their shot at being a part of this industry.
So I wanna go back to the weed industry and stuff like that. So I was watching Rick Ross. I mean not Rick Ross, but the real Rick Ross interview with Ray Freaky Ross with on Blackout. He talked about how a lot of your incumbents in the industry were former illegal drug pens. How does it make you feel, when you see your co-founder go through what he went through, and then you see people?
There it is. Like, how does it make me feel seeing my?
Yeah, so like I watched the Free Red Ricky Ross interview on Blackout, and he talked about how there's former kingpins, and even one guy he spoke about was a line with one of the cartels, Mexican
Uh-huh.
cartels. How does that make you feel when you have your co-founder who went through what he went through, and then people trying to break in, but you see people who made a lot of money illegally, and they're like just taking over the industry?
I'm happy. I'm happy that people from the legacy are getting their shot at being a part of this industry, right? They were the ones that took the risk in the early days to make this plant legal, right? Like those that sold weed in the beginning days when it was illegal, and those were the ones that got in trouble for it and put their lives on the line. I think that they should absolutely have a seat at the table, because if it wasn't for those people, we wouldn't have an industry. It took people going to jail, it took people dying, it took people, you know, basically a revolution on the plant in order to get that plant to where it is today. And we're still not all the way there. You know what I mean? We still have a long way to go, but we've made a lot of success. And so I think that those that sold in the legacy market, I think those that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years, those growers that were in Humboldt, there's generations of growers. Your father's father's father have been growing in Humboldt. Those people should absolutely have a seat at the table. If you went to jail for cannabis, and you actually sold weed, like not just getting pulled over with a joint in your car and then now all of a sudden, you want to claim that you were legacy. But I mean, if you were really legacy and you really did sell the plant, like I think you should have a seat at the table and let the market dictate whether or not your company survives. Still got to put out good product. You can't put out trash. You know what I mean? You still got to compete on price and all these other things. But it's about the access and the opportunity. I think that there should be access and opportunity for those that um, are in the legacy, that came from the legacy market, as well as get access to things like banking and other things, right? Because typically we've been kept out of that because of our past.
So where do you see the regulation going for the industry, as particularly around legacy people who were, harmed by it, but then just the legalization of marijuana? Do you think it's going to how far off do you think we are from the entire U.S. where it just being legal?
That's a great question. I I don't know. Just when you think that it's going to happen, it doesn't happen. And then when you're least expecting something, something happens. I still think we got a few years to go before we see a full legalization. Um, I think we need to get all the states legal first. And I think when all the states become legal, at that point is when feds will make it legal. We're close. You know what I mean? I think we're like 39, 40 states are medicinal, and approximately 20 something are recreational. And I think when we go fully medical, and then when we especially go fully recreational, it's going to be at a point where it's like, come on, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? But I think we could do some things prior to then, like decriminalize the plant, like making it not a crime, right? Safe banking and some of these other things in order to allow small businesses and businesses to thrive is going to happen soon. The industry is really, really bleeding really, really bad. They're overtaxed, over compliance. It's being squeezed really, really bad. And it's causing companies to fail. It's causing large companies to fail. It's causing industry to falter. And what's going to end up happening is the big boys are going to come in and pick up everything for pennies on the dollar and push the industry out. Cannabis is the last industry that marginalized communities can get a piece of and have real generational wealth. You know what I mean? There's no other industry in the world that exists that will allow for marginalized communities to be able to get generational wealth. This is it. There's nothing else. Every other industry is embedded into society, healthcare, tech, you know what I mean? Um, Hospitality, bioscience, everything it's gone already. There's no generational wealth for folks that look like you specifically, Corey, right? So cannabis is it. So we have to fight for it, and we have to push hard, and we have to survive, and we have to figure out how we can stick around, build brands,
Yeah.
make ourselves sustainable. And they're not making it easy for us because of the overtaxation, ridiculous amount of compliance. There's just way too many touch points, no interstate commerce. The cost to do business is just ridiculous in this industry. Lots of people aren't paying their bills. So it's really tough, man. It's really, really tough.